All right, welcome back, everybody. This is going to be episode 4 of the podcast. We have a very special guest coming up. But first, Cole's got us an insight.
So our insight today comes from our good friend Nick Racanelli in Manahawkin, New Jersey, and I'll go ahead and read it off. It's a pretty deep one. His insight is to be consistently persistent, and he elaborates on that, and he says, I feel persistence is such a virtue to have, whether you are in the work field, an athlete, or whichever environment. People nowadays are so frightened to fail and whatnot. The moment they do, they give up on the entire project or whatever they are working to accomplish. I myself have failed a countless number of times, but behind each and every failure has come some sort of success. Failure has taught me more than success, but both stem from that virtue of persistence. Keep your eye on the prize and keep attempting to accomplish whatever it takes, whether it takes one try or 1,000 tries. What do you think about that, Nick?
Wow. Yeah, very well said. Man, persistence really is the key to everything. I think that's kind of a common theme we're seeing with our guests and everyone. It's just, go do stuff, but keep at it if it's really what you want to do. So,
I agree, dude. So, before we get into our guest today, just a little, I don't know if we'd say an announcement or maybe more of a disclaimer.
Yeah.
Go ahead and go into that.
Yeah, so we feel that, we don't want to censor our guests. We don't want, because we feel like that might be censoring their thoughts. So we just kind of wanted to red flag it here. This is going to be coming after our podcast with Dylan Kleck, where, he's definitely didn't censor his words, and that's just how he is, and that's how we are with talking to him. And we just kind of wanted to let you guys know that it's not our intention at all to censor people. And if we hear swear words, or we hear some different opinions, those aren't necessarily the opinions of us, and not that they are or aren't. We just wanted to lay that out there. And, same with the censorship. We're not going to be bleeping out words or anything like that. So apologies to those who may be offended by that or don't want to hear those words. But we're going to try and flag those videos so that we know.
Yeah, I feel like Nick said it perfectly. But just to kind of pitch in, if it's put on the podcast, it's not necessarily and likely not our thoughts and opinions, because even though we might have our good friends on, like anyone else, we don't all have the same opinions, same views, same choice of language, but we don't want to have people on just to have people agree with our ideas and use our language. We want people to come on and be themselves. So with that being said, I hope you have that in the back of your mind listening to any previous or podcasts to come.
Yeah, exactly. So, you want to introduce our guest for today?
Yeah, our guest today is our good friend Caleb Foster. Caleb is a bodybuilder. He's also, and this is what we go into a lot on the podcast today, has been living through, I guess seasonal jobs is a good way to say it, exploring the country, bouncing around from place to place, and it's a lot to unpack, and I hope you guys really enjoy it, so stay tuned.
Welcome to Insights of All Trades with Cole and Nick. This is where we talk to people we meet along our journeys through medicine, military service, sports, education, and beyond. We hope you enjoy.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Insights of All Trades podcast. Our guest today is Caleb Foster. What's going on, dude?
Living the dream, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, welcome to the show, man.
So, jumping in with how I got to know Caleb, at least very well in the past couple years, is that we went in, along with some other friends, on buying a school bus together and ripping it apart and making it into an RV. So, Caleb, you probably know a lot more than me because you did a lot more work on it. Take us through the journey of the Magic Swole Bus, dude.
So, the Magic Swole Bus. The idea originally started whenever we were in high school, college freshmen. There was a bunch of us as friends, you included. We wanted a way to adventure together instead of always driving separate cars and for long trips and stuff like that. It's just not feasible. So we decided, hey, there's these people out here doing things like RVs and schoolies and stuff, and we started to really dive into the idea. And eventually Chad, he's just like, hey man, here's one, let's go get it. And
I think we found it on Craigslist.
Yeah, it was Craigslist. And we were pretty much like, yeah, let's do this. So we bought a camper as well, completely gutted the entire bus, took out all the seats, everything in it, the rubber flooring, painted it. It's blue now. Slapped the Magic Swole Bus stickers on the side, give it some character. And we took the pieces from the camper and put it inside, like the refrigerator, microwave, everything. So yeah, now it's an RV.
So
Yeah.
why the bus instead of the camper if you already had the camper?
Um, the bus was cooler.
A lot more space than the camper that we had gotten too.
Right. Yeah, and plus you didn't have to tow it with a truck or.
Okay. Oh, that makes sense. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I think we have like 4 full beds in the school bus, and then you have a couch and like the tables fold into a bed, so you could comfortably sleep like 6.
Yeah.
And I think we had, jumping into the only real trip we've gotten to take on it, we went up to Acadia in Maine, and we had 4 of us together.
Yes, there was 4. The original, there were supposed to be more, but some backed out, which I don't know why, but because it was a very fun trip.
So did you guys do all the renovations yourselves?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. The only thing we didn't do was change the tires because we're not mechanics.
Where'd you guys figure out how to do all that stuff? Just YouTube videos?
YouTube, yeah.
Something like that.
YouTube's a magical tool. Pretty much anything you want to know is on YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we ended up getting the bus registered as an RV before we left, because then we didn't have to get a CDL or anything to drive it up to Maine. So I'm pretty sure, legality-wise, that by registering it as an RV, all of us could drive it, given that you have your driver's license. So
Right.
we went up to Maine. It wasn't exactly an easy straight shot. That was a rough drive.
Yeah, except for Zeb. He couldn't drive. But, yeah, he's a goofball. But, yeah, so we took it to Maine, and it was a long drive. It was supposed to be, 12 hours?
Yeah, it was a lot more than 12 hours.
Yeah.
I want to say 18. So
Why did it take so long?
the fuel filter, right?
Yeah, the fuel filter, apparently it needed changed, and we didn't really think about it before we left. And we were driving, and all of a sudden, Cole, I think, said, he's like, is this bus getting slower?
Yeah.
And we were like, no, it's not. It's just a slow bus because it's a bus. And we kept driving and driving and driving, and eventually we're like, yeah, we think this thing is getting slower. So we pulled over, and we're like, oh, okay, maybe that's what's the problem. So we changed the fuel filter, and then after that, it was fine.
It got to a point where we would be on a highway with a 70 miles per hour speed limit, and we would be going 25 with 4-ways on, and he would just be flying past us.
Yeah, people would be like, get off the road, you know what I mean? Stuff like that.
Yeah, let alone the fact that we took it straight through New York City on a Friday afternoon
Right.
at 4 p.m. So yeah, it was rough getting up to Maine.
So how long did you guys drive with it like that?
15 hours minimum.
Yeah.
And then you guys are finally like, okay, maybe we should check it out.
It was pretty close to the end of the trip where we were going over some rolly hills, up and down, up and down. And we're like, why is this thing
Yeah.
barely kicking?
Jeez. Not when you were going 20 on the highway, you're like, it's probably still fine.
Yeah. I mean, we aren't very knowledgeable on, mechanics of buses
Yeah.
or automobiles in general.
Right. It was pretty much like, let's put this thing together and go. So pretty much as soon as we got it finished, we were like, let's go. We put this thing together, now let's take it somewhere. And we had like he said, very little knowledge about the mechanics and stuff about a school bus and everything like that. But it was definitely a fun trip. After the fact, I think we could look back and laugh at it.
There was a similar thing that happened to me in so you guys know how I had the band in high school?
Mm-hmm.
We had this band van in 1987 GMC Vendura thing. It's like this
Shaggy
beast
wagon.
of a thing. But for some reason, so we got the engine changed in it, or I don't know what we did to it, but we did 4 or 5 different, pretty much resuscitations of this van that's it should have been dead a long time ago. And we're driving it to one of our shows loaded with band equipment, and it just starts going 10 miles an hour on the highway, 322 going to up towards State College. And we had to pull off on the shoulder with the 4-ways on. And like you said, people are ripping by, get off the road. We can't do anything. We're stuck either on this highway and get it towed, or we're taking the next exit. But we ended up we took it to the show. We drove it the whole way to the show. Because what else are we gonna do? We got all our equipment there, and we're gonna be late for the show if we don't get there. And then when we get to the show, everyone's giving us advice on what to do. We end up like drilling a hole into like the catalytic converter because that's what some random person was like, yeah, this is probably gonna work. We did that, it didn't work. So now the van's just been sitting in some garage for like the last 3 years.
Oh dang!
It's just rusting out.
No happy ending to that stuff.
No happy ending for the van.
Dang, that's rough.
Yeah, but hopefully, the Magic Swole Bus still has some years left in her.
She's still kicking.
I hope so. She is kicking. We're planning on hopefully selling it just because we're doing some traveling and, nobody wants to pitch in gas money because it is a diesel and it gets about 8 miles to the gallon. So
yeah, how much do you think we spend on gas going to Maine and back?
It's way too much.
I honestly can't remember exactly, but I feel like each person put in probably close to $200 a piece to go up to Maine and back. I'd
say it was at least $600.
Yeah.
At least, if not more.
Yeah, it was hefty. But yeah, so when we came back down from Maine, I feel like that's when the trip kicked off in terms of the bus working, so that was nice. Slept in a Walmart parking lot for a night. That was fun. Had a nice little cookout in a Connecticut Walmart parking lot, so that was fun. Stopped in Boston.
So what did you guys do? What was your destination in Maine? Or did you just guys driving?
It was pretty much Acadia. That was always the destination right off the bat. And then we just were like, hey, let's stop here. Hey, let's stop here. Let's do this. Let's do that. Just some short little trips on the way. We slept in like a campground when we got there. Came back down.
Yeah, Acadia's pretty massive. Like, I'm sure all the other national parks are as well. It's on, was it Mount Desert Island, I think?
I don't remember.
Something like that. So it's like you go across this little bridge just to get to Mount Desert Island, and then Acadia National Park makes up what I think is the majority of that island. Did a bunch of hiking, hung out in, what was that, Bar Harbor, I think, or something like that.
Yeah, Bar Harbor is like pretty much right there with Acadia. The thing I do remember is we took it up that huge mountain. Do you remember that? That it was the highest mountain in Acadia.
Yeah, Cadillac Mountain.
Yeah.
You took the bus up that?
Yeah, and it said like no.
Is this after you got the...
We changed the fuel filter when we got to, I want to say, the campground that night. Something like that.
I don't, yeah.
But before we went up this mountain, so Cadillac Mountain was the highest mountain in Acadia, and there was a sign that said something like no buses or something should go up.
Right.
Oh, you guys are in RV?
Yeah.
No, it said no RVs.
Admittedly may have broken a road there to get to the top of Cadillac Mountain. Yeah. It was like a 4,000 feet drive and going around some twists and turns.
The brakes held up coming down?
Yes. We were scared,
That
actually.
was the thing we were really scared about. But
because if you got a big bus just...
Yeah. But yeah, we couldn't park it on like a hill because of that, because like it would just slowly roll back down. But yeah.
In hindsight, we should have hiked to the top because we parked to the top and we found a really cool trail where we hiked the whole way down, and then we hiked back up to our bus.
Yeah, like the Amazing Race, you were sprinting up that mountain.
Yeah, we made a bet with our friend Chad that I was training really hard for college wrestling, and I assured him that I could run to the top using the trails quicker than he could get back up using the road. And him and Caleb even hitchhiked, and I don't know how much I beat them by it, but I was hanging out in the bus for a while.
Yeah. you were definitely there a long time.
I was destroyed when I got back.
We were walking for a long time until somebody finally picked us up.
Someone actually did pick you up, though.
Yeah.
Just with your thumb out.
Two people actually did.
It's like a 4-mile-ish run from, I mean, it's only 4,000 feet elevation, but using the trails, it's like a 4-mile run to get to the top.
Just straight up, too.
Yeah, it was hard.
Yeah, and you were standing there talking to some people at the top or something. We're
yeah, that was really cool.
And then you
met
came
some
out of the bus.
Yale students at the top. And
Really?
I was talking to them. Yeah, I looked like a maniac running to the top of the mountain. Like, you okay? I was like, yeah, just made a bet with my friends that I could beat them to the top.
Did you win anything in the bet? Pride.
Yeah, pride.
Yeah.
But just that mountain was crazy. So it's a lot of like wooded hiking, but you're along the ocean, and then at the top it opens up a bunch of bedrock along the ocean.
Beautiful views. Beautiful views. If you've never been to Acadia, everyone should go.
I agree, it's very unique. So yeah, after that trip, which in its own right was pretty crazy, when we So we rush back in the bus, and the next day, Caleb and Chad are like, we have a couple hours until we leave for Ocean City.
Right, yeah.
So what were you doing there?
Pretty much, unfortunately, Chad can't be here today to speak on his behalf. But, yeah, pretty much right as soon as we got back from Acadia, we had to leave then again, and we went to Ocean City, Maryland. That's where a lot of people from around here go to vacation. But we decided to get seasonal jobs there and just live at the beach for the whole summer with some friends.
Did you take your bus down and park?
No, that was the original plan, to try and find a place to camp, like a campground for the whole summer. But they didn't lease out seasonals or something. They were all booked or something happened where we couldn't do it. But then Chad, whenever he went to test, he was a lifeguard at the beach, and whenever he went to test for, so that way he'd pass and be like, oh, you can officially save people from drowning. But yeah, he met these two really cool dudes, and we started a group chat and just found a place together. 2 places, actually. The first one we roomed with, it was a 2-bedroom apartment with 8 people in it. 2-bedroom, 1 bathroom.
Jeez.
Just because it was like a last-minute thing, because we couldn't find any housing anywhere because it was all booked up. So we were like, okay, we're desperate. This is a place. I mean, it's like the cheapest we're gonna get, unless we want to pay like $4,000 for a place that we can't afford. So we stay there for about a week, and I say to Chad, and the one guy wasn't even there. He didn't come down until he was done with college because he was in school. And I said to Chad, I'm like, I can't do this. Like every morning, everybody's using the bathroom at the same time, so it was a hassle. So you had to plan your schedule around the bathroom, pretty much.
Sounds like you were basically living in a hostel.
Right, yeah, that's pretty much what it was.
So was this an Airbnb thing you guys found, or how did you find this place?
Yeah, I believe it was either Craigslist or Facebook. Chad found it. It was like an apartment type situation, but it was like in the bad town or whatever, where they slam J1 students, which those are the people that come over from different countries and stuff, and they don't know all the laws and regulations, so they pretty much just slam as many people in those apartments as they can, and that's what we got stuck with.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So you were there, and you were doing like public safety stuff, right? So kind of as an internship.
Yeah, I was doing it as an internship from my schooling because I want to get a criminal justice degree. And it was it was public safety, but I worked for and with the police department there. And it was a lot of fun. We did some crazy stuff, but met some lifelong friends that I'll never forget.
That's awesome, dude. Can you walk us through any of the crazy stuff?
Yeah, well, first off, Chad and I did eventually find a better place, a lot nicer place, and the other guy did come. So it was like, we were kind of like a family. We're like brothers, the 4 of us in that little apartment. But yeah, I worked midnights, so night shift, and pretty much every night there was something going on because Ocean City, Maryland is like the party town, the place to go whenever you want to have fun.
Yeah.
So it could be anything like, oh, there's a shooting one day, to just, public drunkenness another day.
What's the craziest thing you've seen down there? If you're allowed to talk about it.
Yeah, the scariest thing that I was involved with, there was 2 pretty scary situations. The first one was active CPR. An elderly woman, she had a heart attack. So we went in, did CPR. She unfortunately did not make it. She got to the hospital, didn't make it. And then, that was a scary situation. Everyone was sad, and it was like, yeah, it happens. It's like, it's not your fault. There's nothing you can do. It happens. And then the second situation was somebody called in and said, hey, there's a man with a gun. Like, I just saw him at the gas station. I saw him have a gun. And we're like, okay, where did you see him at, whatnot. So we pulled this guy over, and it was pretty cool to see because if you look in your rearview mirror and you see 6 cop cars coming at you, you're going to think something's up, and that's pretty much how it was. So that's a pretty severe situation whenever you have somebody with a firearm, especially in a major city like that. And we pull him over and stop him, and we search him and stuff, and he didn't have a gun. So that's relief. And apparently somebody wanted revenge for something he did to them or something like that. So they made up this story about a gun. But
Jeez.
we didn't know that going into
Yeah.
it. So us as officers were like, okay, we have to prepare for this situation, which we learned beforehand in, training. And it was just a pretty cool sight to see everybody play their part in teamwork. And everybody walked home that day.
Just out of curiosity, with, having to respond to someone having a firearm or possibly having a firearm, what's the carrying laws like? Because I know here in the rural town of Mifflintown, PA, you can, concealed carry. Can you not do that in Ocean City if you have, a permit to carry? Gotcha. I don't know
think
what their
you're
state
allowed.
laws are like.
I don't think you're allowed any firearms inside the city. Outside of the city, I believe you can. Of course, unless you're, a law enforcement officer.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't believe that you're allowed to carry just because it's a city ordinance.
Gotcha.
So with your internship, were you allowed to have a gun on you?
I was not,
Okay.
just because I wasn't 21 at the time.
Okay, gotcha. So with this criminal justice stuff, what's your bigger goal here? Do you want to be a police officer someday, or?
Yeah, my bigger goal, I was debating actually, originally coming out of high school, I was debating whether to go to the military or not. So I decided the college route instead. But eventually I planned moving out to LA, I want to go to K-9 school, become a K-9 officer eventually, but it takes years to do that, so we'll hope for the best.
Yeah. So getting back to the Ocean City stuff, so you were living there for how long, was it?
I was there from May to the end of September,
Okay.
so pretty much all summer and fall.
So what prompted you originally to want to move there with your buddy?
Well, the original reason I was going was for the internship,
Okay.
and he pretty much I was like, hey man, I'm going to Ocean City for the summer. Do you want to come with? And he's like, yeah, let's find a job. And he's like, oh, here's a lifeguard. So we just said, all right, let's do it, and went.
So now, based on following you on Instagram and Twitter and stuff, it seems like that kind of exploded into almost a mentality with you guys of traveling around and seeing different places, working these seasonal jobs, and just getting around the country.
Yeah, pretty much. Chad and I have been lifelong friends for a long time, and the mentality behind it is pretty much let's go, let's do something fun with our lives. I don't want to sit here in Juniata County forever not doing anything. So we're like, hey, let's do this, let's do that. And from Ocean City, we came back to Juniata County for a few months, and I believe he was just Googling, because he loves skiing. He's been doing it for a really long time, and he's like, hey man, let's go skiing this winter. So we were sitting there, and he was Googling the best skiing place in the U.S., and Vail, Colorado came up. And he was like, hey man, you want to go to Vail? And I was like, yeah, sure, let's go. So we pretty much just packed up packed up everything we had and moved halfway across the country, with a couple bucks and nothing, pretty much. And we just settled there and said, hey, let's go.
Did you get a job out there? Did you land one before you went out? Or did you go out and then get a job once you were out there in Colorado?
No, we went out and then
Okay.
found jobs. Chad was looking a little prior to when we went, but I wasn't. I was just like, yeah, I'll
You just went and
hopefully I'll
found
find
something.
something. Yeah.
So you guys go out. Chad started as a ski/snowboard instructor, right? In
Yeah.
Vail.
Yeah.
And then what did you end up doing when you were out there?
Yeah, I ended up working at a local grocery store, just picking up shifts, just to make money, pay rent.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't bad, making $15 an hour, doing barely any stocking shelves. But yeah, Chad, he was a snowboard instructor teaching kids how to snowboard, which for him, that was a huge leap because he's never done anything like that, like interacted with kids in that way before. So it was pretty cool to see, just to, just be around that environment.
How's
That's
the living
awesome.
situation out there work? Like, it's probably hard to get a lease for only a few months, right?
Yeah, it is. We were actually out there. It was a 6 month lease that we did, and a lot of places don't do like short leases, like you said. So we were out there. It was like an Airbnb type thing. People do that all the time, and we rented a room out of somebody's house, and we just stayed there with him, and he had other renters that would come in and out.
That's pretty cool.
Seemed like it was like a mansion you were living out of. It seemed crazy.
Yeah, it was a pretty nice place. Five bedroom, 3.5 bath. It was a huge place. It was like $1 million home, which there in Vail, Colorado, that's like average because everybody there is like rich. The kids they call in sick days so that way they can go skiing is basically how it goes.
Did you do any skiing or snowboarding?
Yeah, Chad and I we snowboarded a bunch. Well, he snowboarded a lot more than I did, but yeah, we went to a couple different resorts because there's just so many different mountains you can explore. And my favorite was probably it was a place called Keystone. It was like an hour drive from where we were living.
Which was near Vail, right?
Right, yeah,
Okay.
we were 15 minutes from Vail, 2.5, roughly 2 hours from Denver west. So we were more central.
What's the
Um,
town called that you were in?
It was Edwards, Colorado. And yeah, Keystone was the best just because of the park it had. The park was amazing. Do flips and stuff. I mean, I didn't, but like the rails and stuff like that. It was pretty cool.
How long have you been snowboarding for?
Um, Now it's been only like 2 years.
Okay. So you were kind of a beginner-ish whenever you got
Yeah,
out
yeah,
there.
pretty much.
That's cool.
Pretty much. I did around here Tussey Mountain a lot, which is nothing compared to out there. But it was a learning experience. I learned really quick because you have to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like the snow's just so much more powdery out there. That's probably easier to learn. You could probably speak to that a lot better than I could.
Yeah, it snows pretty much every day out there. I remember shoveling our driveway because nobody else would do it. I remember out there every day just shoveling, shoveling, shoveling. That's felt like that's all I'd ever did. But yeah, it snowed pretty much every day, and it wasn't like icy. It was a powdery type snow. So up on the mountain, of course, they got more snow. But it was just it rode better on your board and skis.
Definitely does feel like it's just ice out here.
Yeah.
The first time I tried snowboarding, I went with my college roommate, and we were going on Tussey, which is like a pretty small hill, but we decided, oh no, like we were longboarding at the time and stuff, just like college stuff, and we're going down. So we get to Tussey and we're like, should we do the bunny slope? And we both kind of agreed, no, we're good. Like we longboarded, it's probably the same thing, right? So we get on the chairlift and go up, and we're like, all right, let's at least start with like a green, like an easy one. So we go down, and right away, like we catch an edge, and both of us slam our heads off the ice. We're like, this is not gonna work. So we tried for another probably like, we got up. Started going down again, pick up way too much speed, try and stop, and then slam again onto the ground. After about maybe like 10 times of that, we just both take our snowboards off. We're like, I'm done. We just walk down the mountain, get in the car, and went home.
Tussey has
Yeah.
two kinds of snow, ice and slush.
Yeah.
Both are not easy to
Yeah,
move
Tussey
aboard.
is I mean, yeah, it's especially because there's so many people that use it. It's just packed down the entire way. Because I remember the first time I went snowboarding, the first time I got in the chairlift, I actually got stuck underneath the
Oh,
lift.
really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I went with Chad, and I was hitting the bunny slope, and I was doing all right, obviously falling a bunch, and he's like, "Hey man, there's another bunny slope at the top of the mountain," and I'm like, all right, another bunny slope, cool, let's do it. And it wasn't. It was the bigger one. And I was like, I'm not prepared for this. But it was all ice, so I, fell, ate it,
Yeah.
hit my head off the ground
Yeah,
multiple
exactly.
times. And it's just, that makes the experience not fun. But out there, it's a whole nother world just because you're up. you're up in the elevation, and it's like
You're usually like above the clouds, like
yeah,
skiing down through
it's like
them.
nothing can touch me
That's
up
crazy.
here. It's like I'm free. You know what I mean? Like you get that feeling. It's just this is awesome.
So did they? I think they did like Olympic stuff out there at one point, right?
Yeah, they have the Burton U.S. Open and the winter snowboarding and other skiing, the Olympic Games out there as well.
Did
Like
you get to see any of those like crazy venues when you were out there?
Yeah, it was awesome. Chad and I went. We went to both actually, but the Olympic Games was a lot bigger than the Burton U.S. Open. But it was just an experience just to be able to almost on the half pipe, you can like reach out and almost touch the snowboarders as they, they're doing their tricks and stuff midair, and it's awesome.
Dang.
So did you do any sort of traveling, while you were there working out in Colorado, or whenever you do these types of jobs and move, is it you move to one place and you stay there and get the full experience of that place and just kind of.
I'd say it's a little both. Like in Ocean City, we didn't do as much just because we didn't have as much income, and it's a smaller town. But we did go skydiving, which was an amazing experience. And if you haven't ever gone skydiving, I would say it's definitely worth the money. But we in Colorado we traveled a little bit, went to a couple different towns, different mountains to ski, different mountains to hike.
So going back to the
Stuff like
skydiving stuff, I think so. We saw Chad was like a licensed.
Yeah.
What was it?
Something like that. I think you have to go around 20 times or 25 times. I don't know the nooks and crannies of the certificate.
Yeah,
but our friend Chad can like skydive on his own without anyone now because of it.
Yeah, it's a crazy amount of dives, and I mean, if you're looking at, $250 a dive, and you're looking at 25 dives, that's an insane amount of money for the
Working on that
dives.
lifeguard salary.
Yeah. But I don't know. He can go by himself, but I don't think he has his license to, because I think once you get your license, you can go tandem with other people, meaning he could have, you or me with him while he's diving.
Oh, okay. So you got to do more than.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I mean that makes sense if
Yeah.
you want to, give your
Be responsible for someone else.
Right,
Yeah.
right. But it's just crazy expensive.
I would agree that it's worth it though. I can't remember if it was last summer or the summer before. My dad and I went, and it is insane. Did it
you
in
also
PA.
go at
Yeah.
Ocean City?
Oh, no. We did it. It's called Skydive Happy Valley, somewhere in
Okay.
Lewistown, PA, or in that general area.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's insane. I thought I would have liked the free fall the most, but it was so hard to see, even with the goggles that they provide you. At least for me, it's really hard to see.
Yeah.
But once they pull the chute and it get annihilated by the chute when it gets pulled,
Yeah.
but then you get to look around, and then it was really cool, kind of take it all in. I can't imagine what it would be like if what you were taking in was the ocean and all the crazy stuff at Ocean City.
Right. Yeah, it was an experience for sure, because when you're up there, you can see literally everything. And the thought of dying isn't really in your mind just because of the view, and you're like, wow, this is crazy. And I don't know if you've ever seen Will Smith's video about he did whenever he went skydiving.
Was this the recent one, like over the Grand Canyon or something? Or is this a different time?
No, it was a different one about his
Oh,
experience,
okay.
about how he said, about how nervous he was to go skydiving, but once he got out there, he's like, this is the most blissful experience I've ever done in my life.
Wow.
And that's pretty much how it was for me too, because as soon as I got in the plane, I'm like, all right, there's no turning back, let's do it. And once you get out there, it's just, you're out there. And the only bad thing is if you don't have your harness on tight enough, like our one friend, our roommate that we went with, he didn't have his harness on tight, so it completely destroyed his crotch area.
Oh,
yeah.
Because whenever you pull it,
It's
yanks
painful.
you up. Yeah.
Jeez.
And I felt bad for the guy. But besides that, it's an amazing experience. And the guy my instructor or whatever they're called that I was with, he like let me steer the chute and stuff and do 360s and
Cool.
it was pretty cool.
Do they prepare you much before you go out there for what's gonna happen? Like that you're gonna get yanked by that shoot, or like
They tell you, they don't they don't tell you exactly what's gonna happen, but they pretty much just go through a rundown of here's your harness, like this is how you put it on, like this is what you do. They don't really go into detail about like what happens, but
I thought I saw like a picture of you. Maybe it was Chad or somebody was inside. Like you guys looked like you were inside doing some sort of skydiving practice or something like that.
yeah, that was in an iFly in Denver actually. We went there one day where we all had off. It was kind of like a roommate outing type thing for us and our roommates there at the house. So we all took a trip to Denver, which was 2 hours, and we did indoor skydiving, which it wasn't as fun as outdoor skydiving, but it was still a cool experience.
What is indoor skydiving? I've never heard of that.
It's pretty much they have a huge fan and you jump into the fan and it pushes you up with the power of
That's
the
crazy.
fan. Yeah.
And you can kind of like flip around and stuff.
Yeah, a lot of professionals use it to perform tricks so that way they get really good and then like, oh, I can do this outside. So then they do it in the plane as well.
That's pretty cool.
How pricey was that?
It was like $80, which isn't bad, but the down part is it was only 1 minute long.
Oh.
So you were
jeez.
only flying
Yeah.
for 1 minute, but it felt like a long time.
Yeah. How long are you flying in the air from the actual skydiving experience in Ocean
I would
City?
say the free fall is probably about a minute, if
Yeah.
not like just a little more than a minute. But when you're in the chute, it can be depending on the wind. And,
Feels like 5 minutes maybe.
yeah, probably 5 minutes.
What elevation did he jump from? I think I was at like 12,000. I don't know if that's the norm or not.
I think we were at like 13 or 14.
Gotcha. Yeah, so probably similar free fall.
Because I think any higher than what we were at, you have to have like the oxygen masks.
Whoa.
Yeah, which is insane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you were in Ocean City, were you guys doing any sorts of other crazy stuff, like any aquatic sports or like any surfing or anything like that?
We did have a surfboard, but we didn't. I think Chad went once, but we're not very good. Whenever we were out in California a couple years ago, we bought surfboards, and we all went surfing there, which we weren't good either. But we did go scuba diving with the lifeguards. They went on a trip where it was to get certified for your scuba license, and that was awesome because our friend Zeb Wert, he does that, and that was probably the most expensive fun thing I've spent money on.
Was it worth it?
Oh yeah, definitely worth it. And it was expensive because you had to buy all your gear, and you had to pay obviously the instructors and your certification for your books and everything else. And it was classroom style things for first. It was like a week or 2 weeks, but we were inside the classroom and we would just go over like diving and how to dive safely and stuff like that. And then we went out into a pool and did our training there, which that was about a week. And then after that, we went to a quarry where we all dove. I forget how deep it was, but it was pretty deep. And we did two dives a day, and we were there for 2 days, and then we all got certified.
So now that you're certified, can you go anywhere scuba diving pretty much? Like if you would go out to, like the Gulf of Mexico or something, would you be able to go?
Yeah, but you have to have like a guide.
Okay.
You can't just take your own boat and say, hey, this is what I'm doing, because it's regulated very highly.
Okay.
And the only bad part is it's also crazy expensive.
Yeah. Sounds like it's like, it sounds like you guys are really doing stuff when you go to these places. You're not just sitting there and working a job. You're really experiencing.
Right, and that's the whole aspect of it. Like, that's why we left. And it's like, oh, why would we just get a job and, you know what I mean?
Just
like,
do the same thing.
If
but
if I was gonna do that, I could just sit at home and work and make more money and live at home for free. So we were like, yeah, well, why don't we do stuff while we're here?
So let's talk about the timeline a little bit. So when was Ocean City? When were you guys there?
Okay. Let's just. We were there from like May to September. So we went to Acadia first. When was that?
In May.
In May, and like.
So that took up a little bit, like a bulk of May.
Yeah, because we went pretty much the end of May.
Maybe I should only say a week and a half. It felt like a long trip.
Yeah, it did feel like a really long trip. But because I remember I had my birthday there, which is May 25th, so we were definitely there then. But we were there till the end of September. And then after that, we came home for a few months. And then we packed up all our bags and drove halfway across the country to Colorado.
So what happened after Vail? Where did you guys go there? What are you doing now?
After Vail, our landlord called us, Chad and I, he called us C Squared, and like he didn't really call us by our names. He's like, "Yo, C Squared, what's up, dog?" You know, stuff like that. But we split up, and he went to Oklahoma because his dad has a lake house there, and he worked there for a week, I believe it was.
And you flew out, right? So Chad flies back, or did you guys drive out?
We drove. Yeah, we took his Dodge Ram out.
Oh, right. Okay, so he drove back.
He drove back.
Leaves you in Colorado.
Leaves me. I stayed there for an extra week because our landlord, he was going on vacation or something, and he needed somebody to watch his dog. He's like, "Hey man, can you stay and watch my dog?" And the funny thing about it was, I mean, this guy, he owns his own business and he has 2 houses, so he's got money. But so we paid for half the month because we were there for only half the month, and I stayed an extra, week. And he came back and he's like, "Hey man, here's $100 for watching my dog." And I was like, "I've been living here for free. You don't have to pay me." That was pretty. It's just the nice guy aspect, I guess.
So now you're stuck out there without a car? Did you guys both drive out together?
I actually bought a car out there because I was taking the bus, and I was used to taking the bus in Ocean City, but Ocean City's like back, forth, and that's it. But out there, it's like they do circles and all kinds of, like, the bus route's super long. So I was thinking to myself, I can't be doing this every day. I'm going to be late for work and whatnot.
Yeah.
So I just took the shot and bought a car.
What'd you get?
Toyota Prius, actually.
Nice.
A lot of people make fun of me for it, but it gets the
fun
job
of you,
done.
man. Crack him across the head.
That's true. But,
So you get your Prius, or whenever you're out there. Chad goes to Oklahoma. What do you do after watching the house for a week?
I pack up all my stuff in my car. I have Chad take some of it home because we had a lot of, like, our winter clothes and our ski gear and stuff like that. I had him take that home. But I pretty much designed my car as like a home shelter type thing. So I was homeless basically for 2 weeks, and I just traveled around, went to California, up in Nevada, and Arizona, New Mexico. Just traveled around over in the West a little bit.
And so are you living out of your car, or are you getting hotels along the way?
I got a hotel once just because I was in LA at the time, and I slept in a Walmart the night before. And apparently you're not allowed to sleep in Walmarts in LA because I got a ticket on my car.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like it didn't say, "Oh, you have to pay this much." It was just telling me if I parked here again and slept overnight, they'd tow my car. It's like, well, I don't want that to happen.
Yeah.
So I got a hotel for the night, and I needed a shower anyway. So.
But the whole rest of that time, you're just living out of your car?
I was living out of my car. I bought a futon mattress at a thrift store and put it in the back of my car. Folded down the one seat and put it in the back of my car. And I had a little portable grill type thing with the smaller propane tanks, and just cooking out of that.
Yeah.
Had my clothes in a little container and had my gym bag, and I showered at gyms. So every now and again, obviously I didn't want to be paying, $12-$20 every day to be going to the gym. So I just did it every now and again to the gyms and showered there while I was already, using the facility. So I figured we might as well.
Could you walk us through that trip? So where do you go first on that 2.5 week road trip that you did in your car?
Um, it was pretty much me driving a lot. But the first place I stopped, I was driving pretty much all day from Edwards, and the first place I stopped was um, what was it? It wasn't Bryce Canyon. It was Bryce Canyon. Bryce Canyon, I stopped there.
Where's Bryce Canyon at?
It's northwest Arizona, like right at the top of Arizona. And it was like about an hour off the highway. So I was like, I've been driving for a long time. I'm getting sick of just seeing roads. I'm going to go find something to do. So I went to Bryce Canyon. I was there for a couple hours, drove around, hiked a little bit. It's a beautiful view. And I tried going to the Grand Canyon, but since it was still, fairly winter, I guess, over there, winter, but there was snow on the roads, so I couldn't get into the canyon.
It's crazy. I always picture Arizona as like a super hot place.
Yeah.
They wouldn't have snow.
I'll go back out with you sometime, dude.
Yeah.
I'd love to see the Grand Canyon, hike around in there.
Yeah, I'd like that, man. It's amazing. There's so
then,
many things.
Where'd you go after that, after you couldn't get into the Grand Canyon?
After that, I actually went and ate at a little mom and pop shop, which was so good. I got like a pulled pork sandwich and some fries for like $8.
Do you remember the name of it?
No, I don't. It was just a small store.
Yeah.
But those are usually the best that you don't think about, like the people that, like the small places that people don't go to, like the little shanty towns. They usually have the best food and the nicest people.
Yeah, going off on a bunny trail just because it sticks out to me so vividly. One of my favorite parts about our main trip was when we went to a little local lobster shack, and the people that owned the lobster shack, they're super nice and introducing themselves just when we walked in the door. And after we ordered lobster there, got us up from our seats and they're like, come check out like the lobster situation. And they had like Caleb and I pick out our lobster, and we'd watch them cook the lobster, hanging out by the grill with them. I think being able to like really meet people like that, as opposed to going to, say, a chain restaurant or some big fancy restaurant. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but if you can get to know the local people and have cool experiences like that, I feel like they stick out the most.
Yeah, because you're gonna remember that. I don't know if you're gonna remember going to an Olive Garden.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like,
oh, these breadsticks are amazing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But they're the same everywhere across
Right.
the
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the beauty about traveling. It's just the locals and the people that you meet, and they're just all usually very nice people. Like they're the type of people that would let you sleep in their house if you asked.
What kind of people did you meet while you were doing these jobs? Like people like that, or did you run into some, I don't know.
Shady individuals.
LA has a lot of homeless population, so that was pretty much the only place I was like, okay, something could happen to me if I stay here. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sleeping out of my car, like somebody could break in and whatnot. But that was the only place that I was really weary about that, because everywhere else, everyone was extremely nice and very kind-hearted.
Nice. So they didn't look at you as like this foreigner guy, well, not foreigner, but like this Pennsylvania guy that's trying to make it out here on the West Coast. Like they weren't trying to push you away or anything like that.
No, because pretty much that's how it is everywhere out there in LA, and they've all been in my shoes, and they know what it's like to be. I mean, obviously not everyone, but some of the people out there, they're like, yeah, I was homeless, but then I got, I did this, did that, and got a place, and so they had sympathy for me, but it was just amazing.
Yeah. So when did you get to LA? Was that after you got, blocked at the Grand Canyon because of the snow? Did you shoot right over to LA, or did you go somewhere else in between?
No, I went to Death Valley actually, but I was super disappointed that the Grand Canyon wasn't open, because that was the whole reason why I got off, was to go to the Grand Canyon. So I was like heartbroken. But then I turned around and I actually got lost there, and that's when I found the mom and pop shop that I went to.
By the Grand Canyon?
Yeah, and
Oh, okay.
I asked them for directions, and she was going over like here, drawing out me this huge map, and I'm just like, okay, thanks. And eventually I found my way back to the highway, and after that I went to Death Valley National Park, and it was extremely hot. It was 103 degrees, I remember, at 9 o'clock in the morning that morning.
So you go from snow to 103 degrees all in like
Yeah.
a couple of days.
Yeah, it was weird how the climate changed so sporadically. But I guess just because I was, on the road all the time.
Yeah.
But it was probably one of my favorite stops just because it was different. Like there was literally nothing. It was desert for hours and hours. And I was just driving around the desert just looking at these mountains and stuff. It was crazy. And at one part, the speed limit was like 45. And I was like passing people going like 80.
Future cop, everybody.
Yeah.
No one's hating on the Prius now.
Yeah, that's right.
Flying on the roads.
Learn from my mistakes. But, yeah.
And then you went from there to LA from Death Valley.
Yeah, I went from Death Valley. It was getting pretty late. I was there pretty much all day in Death Valley. And I drove, and I was like, okay, I just need to get to LA. Like, I'm tired of driving already.
Yeah.
And so I drove straight to LA, and I hung out at the beach there a little bit. And then the next day, I went to Muscle Beach and then Gold's in Venice and just was talking to the locals and just trying to find out what it was like to live in LA, in the big city, and Hollywood. I went to the Hollywood sign as well, which was on my bucket list.
So after talking to those people, does that seem like somewhere you'd want to be?
Yeah, I would love to live out in LA, but the only bad part is it's so expensive.
Yeah.
And if I can just figure out, how to get through the money situation.
What's the job market out there? Because I know like pretty much everyone wants to live in LA, it seems like. Is it pretty saturated and not many jobs available, or do you know?
It depends what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Because I ran into a guy at Muscle Beach. He called himself the Guru because he was a muscle head, basically, like a gym rat. But he was like 70 years old, and he was teaching me like different posing routines and stuff like that. Real genuine, kind-hearted guy. But he was telling me, he said, if you're living in LA more than a week and you don't have a job, there's something wrong.
Okay.
Thanks, Guru.
Yeah.
Taking to heart.
Well, so what's Muscle Beach like?
It's amazing. There's a lot of history behind it because, of course, that's where Arnold trained, and Lou Ferrigno and older guys like that back in the 70s and 80s. But now it's pretty run down just because it's all rusty, and they can't afford new equipment just because it's owned by the city. So people don't want to put tax dollars into something that they don't have to.
Okay, so it's not privately owned at all, so people can't really...
Yeah, people have tried to buy it before, but the city won't allow them to for some reason. I don't know why.
You'd think they'd like just...
Yeah.
Get it off their hands.
Yeah, if it's
Take
just
care
like
of
rusting
this.
out.
I mean, yeah, I don't know.
That's pretty cool. So wait, so where did you go then after LA? Did you come back home?
After LA, I kind of did like a loop because I came back to LA, but I went to the Redwood Forest way up in Northern California, and that was a hike.
Yeah, and then
Because California is a big state.
Then you had to drive the whole way back to Pennsylvania
Right. Yeah.
by yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
But the Redwood Forest was probably my favorite non-city place.
Okay.
Just because there's literally no one there. You're on your own. I did run into this one couple that were from D.C., small world, but they had 2 kids and 1 kid on the way, and they said, hey, let's just travel the country and do things that we've never done before. And they had these crazy, like, backpack harness type things that they put their kids in.
Oh, those little leash
And
things?
It
or
looked
no?
like The Emperor's New Groove. Have you ever watched that movie?
No, I haven't seen it.
Yeah.
Where Gronk's carrying the woman on her back.
Okay.
It looked exactly like that.
I was picturing like those where there's like a leash attached to a backpack and they're like walking their kid.
No, it's on your back, but that's funny.
I'm just taking my kid for a walk.
I was looking at these guys like they were crazy because they have 2 kids and she's pregnant with another, and here they're going on a 3-4 mile hike down into the forest just to see some big trees. And like these guys, they're crazy.
And then they're looking at you and they're like, this guy is living out of his car.
Yeah, pretty
He's
much.
jacked.
Yeah.
Were they in a schoolie or something?
No, they were just in like a SUV type car.
Whoa.
They had the thing packed full. I remember talking to him, and he was there putting on hiking boots and stuff, and he opened up his thing, and like the entire trunk was just full of boxes and like different shelving unit type things. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And then you head back, well, loop down to LA. Was that the end of kind of hanging out west?
No.
Where do you go after that?
After that, I went back to LA because I wanted to. Well, actually, before that, I found a kind of segregated type coastal beach. And it was just like a pull-off section where there weren't a lot of people. And it was just beautiful. That was probably my favorite beach type scene, just because it was a beautiful beach without any tourists.
Okay.
So, I mean, I don't like tourists, but I am a tourist.
Yeah.
So
The tourist
weird.
dilemma.
Yeah. Tourist paradox.
Yeah. It's crazy. But no, I think I went to Yosemite before I went back to LA. I drove to Yosemite National
Oh, yeah, I
Park.
forgot about that.
But I didn't do any hiking that day. I should have, but I was just like, I just want to be done driving, basically, is what my mentality was. But Yosemite was beautiful, but then again, the only bad thing is there was busloads of tourists, like busload after busload after busload of just tourists coming from different countries everywhere.
Yeah, you probably have to hike pretty deep into Yosemite to get away from everyone.
Yeah, and that's the beauty about it, is just the mountains, and if you hike up, high enough, there's nobody there, and that's just it's just you and the view, and that's beautiful. But after Yosemite, I drove back to LA because I missed just the LA aspect of life. I was like, I gotta visit LA at least once more before I head back home. And by then, after Yosemite, in LA, I drove down through Arizona, New Mexico. I went to Phoenix, Tucson. There's a place in Arizona called White Sands, and it's beautiful. It's like the desert, but the sand is it's like gypsum. It's a mineral. So it's not hot like sand is hot. So you can walk bare feet. There people actually go sledding in the like down the hills and stuff.
Did you do that?
No, I didn't go. I watched them do it, and it looked pretty fun. But no, I didn't do it.
So then you just kind of winding your way back home.
Yeah, pretty much. I didn't really have a set schedule until Chad texted me and said, "Hey man, are we gonna sell this bus?" And then I was like, "Okay, I gotta get back home so we can sell this darn thing."
If you sell it, does it come with the Instagram account?
Ooh,
That's a tricky question.
I mean, that would make sense.
Yeah. What's the handle for that Magic Swole?
Magic Swole Bus.
I think it's the Magic. Either way, it'll probably come out.
Yeah.
But then I went to Roswell, New Mexico. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's the place where they supposedly found the UFO.
No.
Okay.
And they took it to Area 51, but I didn't really. It was dark, so I didn't have like exploring or anything.
What do you think, man? Do you think aliens exist?
Wouldn't surprise me.
That's a cop-out answer.
There's some crazy things in the world, man.
Yeah.
Where are you at? Area 51?
I was. It was dark again, but I just passed through.
Oh, okay.
I slept at a gas station because I was pretty much lost because
A
it's
theme of the trip.
it's desert, man. There's nothing. Like it's seriously like a wasteland.
When you're getting lost like this, what's going through your head? Are you freaking out at all? Or are you just like, I'll find my way?
I'm kind of just like, yeah, I'll find my way. Because I had a Prius, so it's like, I don't need to fill it for a while. It's whatever.
Yeah.
But have you ever played Fallout?
Yeah.
That's pretty much how it is. Like, it's desert wasteland for miles and miles. But I stopped into this gas station. It's probably like 10 or 11 o'clock at night. And I was like, hey, where's the closest, rest stop? And she looks at me and says, you're looking at it. Like, this is it. Like, where else do you want to go? It's like, this is the only place for miles. I'm like, okay, can I sleep here? And she's like, yeah, just put your car around back or whatever and sleep. So I did, and then woke up in the morning and took off. But
Nice. So now you're home. What's the big next step for you? Are you gonna do some more seasonal job stuff? Are you gonna go travel some more?
my good friend Chad over here.
I sort of think Chad's not real.
Yeah, he's magic.
Have to get
Yeah.
this make believe guy on the podcast.
But yeah, our next big adventure is to hopefully either towards the end of 2019 or beginning of 2020 go to Hawaii and travel around over there a little bit.
Probably can't take your Prius though.
No, we could try, but
Turn it into a Prius boat.
Yeah.
Or what island? Do you know?
we're not sure yet.
Gotcha.
I definitely want to go to the Staircase to Heaven. Have you ever seen that?
No.
It's like this huge, just a giant staircase that goes straight up the mountain, and you're above the clouds whenever you reach the top, and that's why they call it the Stairway to Heaven, because you can't. It's just clouds, and
Is that where the really famous star observatory is, or like space
I'm
observatory
not
is?
sure.
I know there's a really big one in Hawaii. I couldn't even tell you what
Well,
island it's on.
It's probably one of the most famous hikes in the world, though, because it's amazing, beautiful. But I was researching it a little bit, and apparently it's illegal to hike. But they have a security officer there, and I guess if you bring him donuts or muffins, he'll let you hike it.
Legend says.
Yeah, just remember that.
Or
Everybody.
maybe you can be that security officer someday.
Yeah.
And you can just hike it yourself.
Like, hey man, thanks for the donuts, dude. Do
Yeah.
what you want, dude.
Go ahead,
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So I feel like there's still a lot to talk about here. We've got to get into like your whole bodybuilding and everything there too. What else you want to say about the traveling? Do you have some advice for people if they're tossing around the idea of working these types of jobs, like just going out and getting somewhere and just seeing the sights, or even like traveling on your own? Do you have any advice for people like that? I know it's probably not for everybody, but it sounds like you had a pretty good experience just
No.
doing your own trip.
Right. It is. I mean, obviously, it's not for everybody, but a lot of people don't want to travel on their own, and to me, it's like, if you can, why not do it? So basically, my advice would just be to do it. Just put your best foot forward and just do it.
I feel like the nice thing about traveling alone, I haven't really done much, but you're kind of not really tied to other people's plans. It's just whatever you want to do,
Yeah.
you're going to go do it, and then, have a good time with it.
Yeah, that was the nice thing about it, because as I was driving, it was just like, I have no set schedule. I can basically do whatever I want, go wherever, don't have to do anything. You know what I mean? You're free. You're just free.
Yeah.
And that's why people love it, because they're not tied to anything. Like, a lot of people sell their houses and live out of vans and stuff like that.
I've seen that. I've seen those, like, people converting these vans into, like, a little miniature house, and they have, like, a little, like, bunk bed and stuff. We were going to do that with our
Destroyed
van. So I took,
Yeah.
real quick story, I took that van up to Canada with one of my buddies. This was spring break when I was a sophomore, and we came back. We ended up like losing a ton of money. It's a long story, but we had to cut the trip a few days short, and we drove it back, and it broke down. Thankfully, like probably 10 miles across the border, so then we could get it AAA towed home. But man, our plan for that van was so like, this is gonna be an awesome thing, and then it breaks down there, and we're like, should we even like get the new head gasket or whatever blew on it? And we're like, yeah, like, this is our baby, we need to fix it. And we fixed it, and then like 2 trips later, we're doing that band show I was talking about, and it just breaks down again.
Dang.
Now it's just
Have to spark
much
up
money.
another van
That's
conversion.
yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing a lot of people don't think about, because they think about the big picture, like, oh, let's just, travel and do this, but they don't think about the engines and stuff like that.
Yeah,
the wear
the
and
stuff
tear,
that can go
right?
wrong.
The stuff that can go wrong, and the wear and tear, and all the money they have to put into the engine and the upkeep.
Yeah, because what if you convert like this van and then it breaks down? You're just
Right.
kind of stuck.
But a lot of people sell their houses, so I mean,
Oh,
I
yeah,
guess
yeah, you'd have
it's a
some
lot cheaper
backup
than
money, yeah.
owning your own house.
Yeah, for sure. So, do you want to talk at all about the bodybuilding you're doing?
Yeah.
Weightlifting, everything there?
Yeah, I started weightlifting probably, it was in high school. So probably like 5, 6 years ago I started. And now like my aspect is bodybuilding. Like I changed from just, going to the gym training to actually having a purpose when I'm in the gym and when I eat and everything else that you just put in your body.
What's the eating like? That's a pretty big part of weightlifting, bodybuilding, right?
Yeah, eating is not just even in just being healthy all around. Eating is 95% of the training, so to speak.
So what do you eat?
Chicken and rice. A lot of food.
Nice.
Yeah. Now I pretty much just eat everything. I mean, like I've never been like, oh hey, McDonald's, Burger King, like hey, let's go to dinner at Burger King. Like I've never been that type of guy.
Yeah.
Like it's always home cooked meal. Oh, chicken, sweet
So what are you
potatoes.
eating when you're out on the road for 2 weeks? Just
I had my grill.
oh,
And
that's
I was
right.
cooking
Yeah,
like
okay.
burgers and
Yeah.
chicken and stuff on
Okay.
the grill. But every like now and again I'd go to Denny's and get some pancakes.
Yeah.
I was like I need some carbs.
Yeah. That's awesome.
What supplements are you taking, if any?
I pretty much just take protein now. I used to take creatine. I didn't like a lot of people hype up creatine, but for me, I don't see any difference.
Mm.
And I don't take BCAAs or anything like that.
So are you looking to do some competing or anything like that?
I'm hoping to. Just right now, money's tight because I'm broke. Just because I've been traveling so
Yeah.
much all the time. But competing is expensive. It's a lot more work than what people think about. But yeah, hopefully sometime within the next year or 2 years.
Nice. Sounds good.
What's that preparation like for a bodybuilding competition? How would you approach that?
Um, it's a lot of sweat, a lot of cardio, a lot of chicken, lots of protein because you have to up your protein intake so that way whenever you're shredding down, you only lose your fat and not your muscle.
Okay.
How far out would you start your cut? Because I know it's a lot different for wrestling because you have knuckleheads like myself ripping out water weight just to get a number to show up on the scale. For bodybuilding, people don't care nearly as much about what you are on the scale, but what you look like. So you
Right.
have to be slowly like mobilizing your fat storages and preserving whatever muscle you have when you start the cut. So like how do you kind of go about that?
Um, yeah, a lot of people think like, oh, if I'm this weight, if I shred down, I'll be this weight. Like Todd Willow and I, local gym owner, we were talking about how people want to compete at like, oh, I want to compete at 200 or whatever. And then whenever they shred down, they're like 180, and it's like, oh, what happened? A lot of people don't realize how much body fat they actually have and how much they have to lose.
Mm-hmm.
So depending on where you're at, usually people do like 3 to 4 months, something like that. Even the professionals who always like shred down, they do a hard diet right before a show.
Nice.
Yeah, a lot of mental toughness I feel like has to go into that.
Yeah.
It's not too hard, at least from the outside looking in, to show up to the gym for an hour or two, but to keep yourself from eating around the clock
Yeah.
for months at a time.
Yeah, it's a lot different than what people think it is because people expect, if I go into the gym, train for a year, 2, 3, 4 months, whatever, I'll look like these guys. And that's not how it works. Like, I've been training for 6 years and, like, I'm not anything special compared to, the bigger guys and everything else. So it takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
For the weightlifting aspect of your bodybuilding career right now, or as it's taking off rather, what's your training look like in the gym? Like, go through a weekly schedule if you don't mind.
I pretty much I'm different than a lot of people because most people have like a set regimen, like Monday I'll do back and buys or like Tuesday I'll do legs. For me it's whatever isn't hurting, basically. Like whatever's not sore. Like I hit legs, yesterday I'm not gonna hit legs again, obviously. Today I'll do chest and then maybe 3 days later I'll do chest again or something like that whenever it's not sore. So I don't have like a set schedule.
Are you in the gym every day usually or close to every day?
Pretty much every day. Now and in Colorado, it was pretty much just every day just because I just like fell in love with the sport and I was like, this is what I want to do with my life, man.
That's cool.
Very cool. Yeah, so we're over an hour now, so I think we're going to try and wrap this up. What's the big takeaway you want to tell people? Anything about traveling, anything about weightlifting, anything like that?
I'd say don't hold back. Like, dream big, live your life. If you want to do something, go for it. Especially if you're young, like me and you guys. Like, if you want to do something with your life, just try it. And if it doesn't work out, try something else. And just keep trying and trying and trying different things. Just try everything until you find something that you love.
Yeah, and this goes back to an insight we got on our second podcast, but not chasing the money. I mean, you're saying how you're broke, but you're like, it seems like you're living a great life, man. Seems awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I love it. Like, I mean, it's great. But can barely, afford food and, my car payments and whatnot. But as long as I can afford, my car to get to the gym and my food to eat, and it's great. Like, I just love to travel and just love to share my experiences about it.
Well,
That's
good
awesome,
luck, man.
dude.
Good luck with the Hawaii and everything.
Yeah, thank you.
So do you want to tell people where they can find you online or?
Oh, yeah, you can get on my Instagram or my Twitter. My Instagram is IMPHFOS115, and my Twitter is Kanks17. Yeah, Kanks17. Because back when I was in high school, everybody called me Kanks.
How do you spell Kanks?
It's CANKS 17.
Sounds good.
Pleasure talking to you, Kanks.
Yeah, for sure. I appreciate you guys having me here.
Yep.
See everyone.
Thanks for listening, everybody. You can find us on Facebook at Insights of All Trades. Find us on Instagram at Insights of All Trades. Twitter is IOAT Podcast. And send us your insights via email at insightsofalltrades@gmail.com. You can also DM us if you have some insights, and we'll include you at the beginning of the podcast. Thanks again. See you soon.